So my name's Dan, and we're part of a secret society called the Procrastination Society. But today, I'm finally going to step out of my shell, and we're going to get something done in this freaking shop, because I can't stand it no more. All jokes aside, let me catch you up on what's going on with this Dana 60 axle. The biggest issue I've been having with this thing is just debating on utilizing what's left of the old truss or cutting it off and starting new. And I've been struggling like crazy trying to figure this out. I finally decided I'm just gonna build off of what's there. I gotta put my steering mount back here. At least I think. I got a few options, but that's how I have it on this setup, and it works pretty well. Steering's going back here, which in a minute you'll see me mock all this stuff up. I could bore you guys to tears with the details on why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Just trust that there's a reason, but that's about where it's gonna go, and it's gonna jump over this way. And let's just start cutting some pieces and getting to it. I can't commit to this idea I have until we see if the steering clears the way I want it to. So I have to do temporary mock-up of the knuckles, the steering arms, and even something to take the place of the steering. Because I need to see where it's going to be at and how much clearance I have that way. Get a rough idea of our sweep. You see how it gets closer and farther right here. Well, all right, here's our rough little mock-up situation that we got going on. So you can see there's not a lot in the world of clearance, but I was pretty close with my little mark. Now these are kicked back some just because of the way the zip ties are holding them, so it's pretty spot on. Now this is what I was talking about, that sweep earlier. As you turn, it gets closer, farther when you're straight, close again. But I'd say that's a safe bet for where to put my support. Now this arm setup, honestly guys, this isn't 100% ideal for what I would really like to run. I'm just trying to figure out what will work and get my tie rod out of here so that someday I can shove this axle farther forward and get rid of this whole interference issue we got going on between the drag link pitman arm tie rod, because it barely like a hair. It clears by a hair. Honestly, there's so much that goes into steering. It's harder to do an old school leaf sprung rig at this point. Everything that you can get, everything that's made today is for running basically 3-link, 4-link coils. None of it's built to work around leafs anymore, and this is what you end up with. But I'm at least happy there's companies like WFO out there that even give you an option to get stuff like this, to do things a little different. And that's the other part, is you don't see this very often anymore, and I like to just be a little different. I think I'm gonna get my line laser out, get these squared up. So we got the line laser out, and I had originally made this mark right there for where I thought that would be. That was before I even had these arms on here. I just guessed it, and I've casted the line. I'm not sure if you can pick it up, but it catches through the center of both of the steering arms. So that is a pretty good guess, I would say. I really don't even need this mark, but there it is. Remember earlier how I showed how when you steer it sweeps this way? The one thing that I'm not accounting for is this thing still has the full length steering stop, so it's stopping pretty early. Now I'm going to be running RCVs, and I can go to, I think it says max of 45 degrees. Most people say to set it up for like 42. So I'm going to try to set it up that high, but it's going to depend on pitman arm and all that stuff, and this distance and yada yada yada. So needless to say, I don't know how far yet we'll be turning, and the farther it turns, the more it sweeps over. But I think that my initial mark is a pretty safe bet for where to build my stanchion. That's going to leave me with this cool little tool that I got for Christmas a couple years ago, like a contour gauge, if you will, if you want to call it that. You can get a pretty accurate template with this. It's hard to do one-handed though while you're holding the camera. Get a pretty complete piece up to there, trace it onto the cardboard, make some reference marks, and then do the same thing that way, put them together, test fit it on cardboard. Tell you one thing, I know that I second guess myself too damn much, and I need to just do it. Well, this is test piece number 1. Let's see how it turns out. it actually looks pretty good. There's a little bit of air gaps here and there, and we came up a little bit short on the bottom. It's all going to change again when it gets transferred to metal. I just guessed on the height. It's a little tall, but we can fix that with a grinder. I want to match this angle. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. I went ahead and lopped that corner off, trimmed the top a little bit just to get it sort of close. We're just gonna come straight across there and leave that open. That way I can snake the vent out of there. Over here, I just kind of tapered it downhill to that. I think it's just not worth all the work trying to do all that and all the heat. But I do believe that's probably all I'm getting done tonight. Well guys, this is revision 1 anyway, or version 1 I should say. I set it to where there's about a ½ an inch of overhang, so I got a good place to weld up in there. And I do have a little triangle piece right there cut out for that, and I'm actually going to trim it along that line so that it ends up pretty close to where the point is on the front one. It's actually a little bit inside of this line, but you know, once I cut that out, I'll remake that piece. And over here on this end, it'll just kind of be open box like that. I'll be able to get at my vent line, but that's to be using cardboard, because if you don't like what you made, it's really easy to make another one. Overall, I think this is going to serve the purpose that I need to do, so I think I'll lop that piece off the back, get this one dialed in, and then I'll take all these pieces off and trace them onto that 3/16 plate over there. And then this top piece is coming out of that, well, I thought it was ½ inch plate, but it's measuring at 7/16. Whatever, it's just a hair thicker than 3/8, so it'll be a hair thicker than that truss. I don't know if this will focus in on it, but there's an itty bitty little crack there, so I'm gonna grind this out, and that way when I've got this all heated up to weld, I can fix that little guy. It's just a little guy. So recently I've been using this Best Art plasma cutter, and it's working pretty good, but Yes Welder reached out to me and they wanted me to try the new Pro version of their Cut 55 DS, so we're gonna fire this thing up and give it a spin. So right off the bat, I used to have the regular Cut 55, and I swear it was almost double this size. Cool thing about this one opposed to the old Cut 55, well, for one, there's more controls and it's digital. It's way lighter. This one also is not a high frequency pilot arc. It's a blowback style, which means it can be used with CNC plasmas. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've got my eye on one of them Langmuir systems, some little 2x2 or 4x3 tables. I think that would be sweet. Let's get her all hooked up. And this is the stuff that comes with it. So you got the typical, if you want to run it on a 110 cord, I've got like 5 of those. Ground cord, air hose, manual. Let's get a look at this lead. It's got the blowback tip. Apparently they only give you the one tip that's in it and then the one guide. So that's the little standoff to keep you from touching. Let's see what it looks like. I've never actually opened one of these up before. For whatever reason, they send it with these style fittings to use with tubing. because you know everybody just has their shop plumbed with this stuff, so we're gonna switch her out for one of these so we can actually use it. Everything plugs in super easy. Fire it up. I'm gonna give her a little test cut and see how it works on this setting. Rumor has it it'll work better if you actually hook the ground up. That was just the pilot arc doing that cutting. Let's just see how the initial test fit. Dang!
Show me them boobies!
Needs to sit down just a wee bit farther. It's not. Just got to get some of these burrs off of there. And speaking of that, you can kind of see how this thing cut. I had to freehand a lot of this, but even that looks pretty decent. I already knocked some of the slag off of that. All in all, that little guy cuts pretty good.
Oh, God.
You know, y'all should go to my website and get you one of these sweet ass hoodies. It's late, I'm tired, I'm hungry, haven't eaten today at all. It's like almost midnight, and I don't want to make a big mistake on this staying out here just trying to power through it, because I really wanted to like get it done and even get it welded on tonight, and that's clearly not going to happen. So I've got this laid out, and I've had trouble in the past cutting 1/2 inch with a plasma cutter. Obviously, I haven't tried it with this one, but it's more difficult than it seems. Even if you get a decent cut, there's always like a bit of a bevel to it and stuff, and I'm wondering if I'm just better off death wheeling this out. But I don't know, I think I'm going to at least put it on kill mode and maybe do a test cut over here. I know one thing, that's a lot of death wheeling if that's the route I go. Fire in the hole! So, I'm going to have to grind the piss out of that anyway. I think I'm just going to cut the last bit with the old death wheel. Well, this is quite the cut. It's getting kind of dangerous. It's chipping off pieces of my wheel and sending them flying, and it's kind of binding the wheel up. I think maybe the plate's closing up, so maybe I need to try to bend this side down a little bit because it's just pinching my blade. Only thing holding her together now is the slag on that plasma cut side. That is a massive amount of slag. And you know, I thought maybe I was going too slow, but if I tried going any faster, it just quit penetrating, so I just slowed way down. And That may be our culprit, or maybe that, or that, or that. Yeah, clearly I didn't get all the way through. Oh! Ha! Ha ha! Victory! That weighs about as much as a Dana 35, boys. And that right there is where I'm calling it for the night. I'm gonna give it a couple minutes to make sure none of these sparks burn my house down. Or maybe I'll just go make a sandwich and come back and see if it burned it down. Guys, that was a long friggin' night out here last night cutting those parts out. So we're gonna get back to it. Feeling a lot better today. We're refreshed, we're energized. I just got back from getting my tattoo finished. I'll show it to you when it's, you know, not all bloody and needing to heal, but we're gonna have to keep that covered up today because, you know, I'm sure getting metal in it'll feel great. So this is where we left off. I finally got cut through this last night and I just went inside and gave up the ghost. And yeah, the shop didn't burn down, so there's that. Now I got probably 20 minutes of grinding to get this thing all cleaned up. And one thing you'll notice is I cut this the full length and we have to put bends in this to fit. Originally I was going to just cut the top and then cut the little two side pieces and weld them on, but we're going to throw it in the press brake and see if it can handle it. Before that can even dream of going on, we got to get these cleaned up and get these welded on, because this is what's welding to the cast iron, so this is the important part. Once that's done, that can go on at any point later because it's just mild steel to mild steel. For Dan's shop tip of the day, if you've never tried this and you got a bunch of grinding to do, get yourself a filter, 20 by 20, put it on a box fan, and set it up right next to where you're grinding, and you would not believe how much stuff this will pick up. You don't want to send your sparks right into it because you'll burn right through it. But this thing will make the air much cleaner, especially on a cold day when you want to keep the shop heater on. Man, that was a grinder fest. Got interrupted. One of my kids got into a fender bender, so I had to go deal with that, and now it's almost bedtime. Yay me. I wanted to show you guys look how much crap that picked up. The freaking mill scale on this 1/2-inch plate. Dude. Decided last minute to just check my steering clearance one more time because I really don't want to have it hit, you know? I just remembered I forgot to cut the steering stops off. So as of right now, when my steering stops hit, this is steering to about 34 degrees, the best I can measure it. And the RCVs say they have a max angle of 45, so I was planning on setting them to about 42 just to be safe. For reference, this Jeep only has like 32 degrees, I think, something like that, maybe 35. So it's going to be more steering than what I currently have. But when I drew this line and picked where this was going to be, I had it set like this, and the farther you steer it, the farther it swings in. So I've got this set at about what the 42 degrees would be, and if I just center line from there to there and line that up with the axle tube, right, that's about 42 degrees right there, and that's in quite a bit farther. And let me show you. So I got this piece of engine half DOM, which is what I'm going to be using for the steering. Hopefully you can see this, but I'm trying to eyeball it with center on that, and you can see I'm really close to that, but it should clear. But I've got that 1/2 inch of overhang on the freaking top plate, so I'm probably going to end up having to cut that off because I can't have the steering hitting that. But I do want at least a little, like a 1/4 inch of overhang, just so I can weld to that piece. What I might have to do here is I can either compromise on my steering angle, which kind of sucks, or I can just trim this out some more so that I can get this to scoot back to about there. That should give me room to still have a little bit of overhang to weld to. It's a whole bunch of blah 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 to say I'm really glad I checked that before I just welded the damn thing on there. Okay, I trimmed a bunch more of this out. It's scooted this way. I don't know how much because I forgot to mark it first, but I'm gonna guess probably, I don't know, less than half an inch, but close to that. That's about center-ish, ish. So there's definitely, I don't know, about an inch of room there now. That should be good enough. All right, that's where it's gonna live. We got 2 magnets on each side. These flex magnets are super handy and they should hold it in place. I don't want to really cook my magnets either, so I'm thinking about throwing a couple tacks on here before I preheat it on the inside, then remove the magnets and go ahead and heat everything up. Yeah, it's a little risky, but you know, whatever. And then I gotta decide, that's a long way to full weld something, and this material is not as thick as like it is out here. It's probably a 1/4 inch at most. My friend Chris does gears for a living, and he told me not to put too much heat into this because it can warp like where the bearings ride and mess up my run out and stuff. I'm assuming, I don't know if he meant the pinion bearing or the carrier bearings, but he said it can be warped. I was more concerned with it cracking, but you know, whatever. Okay, so I got these pieces tacked on. It's pretty much ready to go. On this one, you're probably like, why is there a point sticking up? But you can kind of see how this piece just came up short. So I tried to match this with the piece back there as far as the height and the angle goes. So then when my plate sits on there, there'll just be a nice gap right there that I can either put a big old fat weld, because I ain't scared to weld a gap, or I might even put a little teeny little triangle of metal in there just so it doesn't cause too much grief. And if there's any excess, I'll grind it down or whatever. We got this all fitting up pretty good as it's gonna get. That tack weld actually straightened it out. How about that? Wow, okay. This is still on plasma cutter mode. Whew, that was great. Whew. God damn, that's a nice looking caterpillar right there, if I don't say so myself. So, I was smelling the beautiful smell of gear oil when I put these tacks on here, and I forgot to clean this, so before I heat it up, I don't know if it's just impregnated in there or if some was spilled or what, but we're gonna go ahead and give her the old clean down. Well, I don't know if y'all saw that, but I just popped that tack right there. So now this end of it flexes a little bit. So I guess that's going to be the first spot that I re-tack. It's at about 250 to 300 right now, which is probably good enough. Let's keep that spot because I had a crack there before and I ground it out, and I need to zip that spot in too. Alright, well there it is. So far, it doesn't look like anything cracked. They look pretty good. A couple of them don't, but what are you gonna do? It's really bothered me not full welding it, and while it's still hot, I may still change my mind because like my gap wasn't very good right there. It's bothering me that I can like see light through that. But I don't know, I don't want to like overcook this diff. But I decided to do both sides on the ends of it, and then just one little pass in the middle. So I don't know, I'm sure it's probably strong enough. It's bothering me. So I want to know if this was you. Would you just go ahead and full weld this? Figure we'll give her a little bit of post heat, just let it catch all back up and even back out. I don't want to go too crazy here because the last time I post heated is actually when I got a freaking crack. Let it cool overnight, and tomorrow unwrap it, clean them molds up, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright y'all, it's the next night, but I really don't have time to work on it tonight, but we're gonna unwrap this and see how it all turned out. So I ended up full welding this thing. I know I sat there and debated on doing it. I figured at least this way by stitch welding it and going back in and filling in the other pieces. I never did like a super long weld and got it really cooking. Got a little bit of a goober there. I had a big old gap to fill right there, but I don't know. I haven't even cleaned this up yet or even really looked at it. I'm trying to see if there's any cracks in it. So one thing I can do tonight, see if the top plate fits, and I'm actually going to paint down on the inside. I'm going to use steel it because you can weld over this stuff, but also it doesn't cook off. So it's only going to be on the inside, but it's going to be directly next to where I'm welding, and it shouldn't like cook off too bad. This stuff is so good, but it's so expensive, and it comes out so fast. You got to be quick. You know, I'm not sure if Steel It is UV stable or not, but man, it always looks so good. Like I want to just use it as the actual color I paint the whole thing. We're going to use my swag press brake in the old Harbor Freight press to try to put a bend in this top piece. And before I can do that, I just realized the jack's out of oil because it's been leaking really bad. You can see there's like oil down in there. You can kind of see it there. Just all over everywhere. I believe it's just this seal at the bottom of this. So if I don't add anything to this, it puts quite a bit of a radius in the bend. The way around that, at least on this HD jack, is you stack in different sizes of angle iron, and the smaller this gap gets, the tighter the radius gets, which is great on thinner metal, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that on a 1/2 inch. I'm going to get one shot at this, so I'm going to find a piece of metal to do a little test bend to see not only how much of a radius I get, but to see if I can bend it on this little skinny one to make it as good as possible. If I don't like what I see, we're just going to cut the pieces off and weld them on. Take a couple out and see what happens. So that's the radius we're going to get. Let me compare that to the axle. Dang, that's not too bad for just a guess. The other thing I did with that test piece is I just kept bending it a little farther and a little farther, and I put this on there. So I bent it to where this said 24 degrees. Now there's obviously it relaxes and kicks back some. So that's what it ended up looking like, and it is just slightly overbent. So when I go to do the real piece, I'm going to stop at 23, check it, and see how it is. Well, for one, my relief cut kind of backfired because it kind of cracked. It's not fitting up so good on this backside. And it's really not fitting up so good on this side either. The angle looks pretty close. It just doesn't want to sit down in there very good. I guess that's where it sits. At least gives us a start at what we're looking at here. But I think since that broke anyway, and now I'm gonna have to, I don't know if that's cracked all the way through, so I pretty much have to grind it out to weld all the way through it. So I don't think we're gonna bend this side anymore. We're just gonna get the big piece tacked on there and probably lop it off and weld it on, because it's just not worth all that. I'm not in love with how this is sitting, but I think I'm gonna tack it right here. I've got too much material here, but if I try to shove the whole thing that way, I lose it here. Like, this is where I have the least amount. So I'm gonna have to just deal with this extra and probably trim it off. Still got a bit of a gap here. I got a plan for addressing that. I'll probably just cut like 3/4 of the way through this and just hammer it down until it matches this. And if it doesn't match it the way I like, I'll just cut it off and make it fit the way I like. So I took the death wheel and stuck it down in here and just took all those edges from where it broke, and I ground that crack out of there. So now I'll fill this with a weld. Probably going to take at least 2 passes, maybe 3 to fill that. Down here I put this little triangle sliver of metal in there just to fill the gap, kind of, and so that shouldn't be a big deal anymore. There's little places here and there you can kind of see light through it. I don't know why the camera can't, but my eye can. So I'm probably going to make another little sliver to stick in there. Looks chunky to me. All right, we're 2 passes deep into this one, so now I'll do one more fat one to finish filling it. I'm just gonna give it a second so I don't get it too hot. Overall, this went pretty well. I spread it out a little bit so it didn't get too terribly hot. Had a couple really nice ones on the backside, go figure. Hell yeah, brother! I did the old ratchet strap around the thing and it closed that gap right on up. Better get my A game on for this one. This one needs to look good. One little wiggle. Otherwise, I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'll bring you in for a close-up. That one little freaking wiggle right there that kind of irritated me. I guess I got a little spot to put in on the end too. God, doing these V-groove welds kind of takes me back to that one time I took a welding class just for fun. We did so many of these, so this one's still so deep. I'm gonna put 2 side-by-side passes in there and that'll almost fill it, and then I'll Maybe I'll do a fancy little Z-weave on top, see if I can get that to look good or if I have to grind it. Tried doing the old Z-weave and it didn't work out like I wanted it to. I couldn't hardly see shit. Honestly, it's weird. It didn't even turn out looking like a Z-weave. So yeah, this one's definitely gonna be a grinder job. All right, y'all, I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna bring y'all back when it's done. I'm gonna not full paint the axle, but I'm gonna paint what I can where I don't need to do any more welding. And you'll see the finished product. Yeah, I kind of ran out of the paint I like to use. I thought I had like 3 cans of this stuff. Rust-Oleum Hammered Black. It makes a really cool finish after you get a couple coats on it, and we only got enough for 1 coat. Well, here it is. So you'll notice I didn't paint out here because I still am gonna have to weld shock brackets and stuff on, and I don't want to have to grind paint off of it. And obviously this needs a better coat than that, but overall, man, I am super stoked at how this turned out. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing like eye-catching, eye-popping. It doesn't look innovative or cool, but it does the job that I wanted it to do, and it's strong as hell, and I'm happy it's done. I stalled out on that project a year ago. It was between that and my surgery is why I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, and that's why I just stopped working on it. So that right there is why I'm so happy that this is done, and I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. Hope you like what I made here. Don't forget to check out my website and stuff, and I'll see you next time. Little sneak peek of what's to come. So this aux locker that I got and this gear set, they won't work together. For whatever reason on this axle, anything above 410 gears has to be a thick cut ring gear, which this is a thick cut ring gear, but I ordered the 456 and up carrier. Therefore, I can only run 410 and down with this locker, which means it's useless to me, and I had to buy another one. It's on the way. And this one's for sale, so if you got like a rear Dana 60 and you want 538 gears or whatever gears you want, hit me up. I'll give you a sweet deal.